Prison. Lamar Johnson embraced his team today after his hearing ended in downtown St. Louis. He has spent nearly 30 years in prison for a 1994 murder he has long maintained he didn't commit. Johnson's case is catching eyes all around the country, including this group of men who were wrongfully convicted of murder and then later exonerated. Only Melanie Johnson is following their crusade for justice.
Corey, supporters traveled over 500 miles for this hearing for Lamar Johnson. The trio in the back of the courtroom represent what happens when the justice system gets it wrong. These men served a combined 44 years in prison for a crime they were recently found innocent of, a hope that they feel will happen for Lamar Johnson.
We understand what it feels like to be where he is. We're not in that courtroom because it's fun. We're not there because we like it. The last time I was in the courtroom, I lost my life.
Kenneth Nixon saw himself in Lamar Johnson this week as he watched Johnson take the stand, arguing his innocence.
I was charged with 2 counts of felony murder, 4 counts of attempted murder, and 1 count of arson.
Nixon found not guilty after serving 16 years in a Michigan prison. He was released in 2021.
I don't live my life just angry at this detective or this officer, but I do know the system needs to change if I don't want anybody else to have to go through what I went through.
Marvin Cotton spent 19 years behind bars for murder, a crime he was found innocent of in 2020.
We are proof that the system got it wrong, but we are all living, breathing proof that the system can get it right.
It is our job and our duty to help those in need, no matter where you at.
These 3 are part of the Organization of Exonerees, coming all the way from Detroit, waiting for the day Johnson can join them in freedom.
We needed a push because we were so far behind on everything, barely knowing how to use a cell phone. So we needed that edge, and our organization is that edge when somebody come home.
The group travels nationwide, meeting with lawmakers to reform how people are prosecuted, shady investigations, and advocate for victims of wrongful convictions.
The seat that he's sitting in is a very stressful one to be in. He got the weight of the world on his shoulders. His life is on the line. He's already lost it once. You don't want to get your hopes up.
More questions about mistaken identity, controversial witnesses, and inconsistent testimony all brought to light this week during Johnson's hearing.
Instead of actually doing their job, investigating, and finding out who actually committed this crime, they cheated to win. That's not fairness. There's no justice in that.
In the state of Missouri, there is no compensation for someone who was wrongfully convicted. The Organization of Exonerees plans to come back to St. Louis once Lamar Johnson's fate is decided. We're live downtown tonight. Melanie Johnson, News 4.
Melanie, thank you. And the judge is allowing Johnson to stay in a local jail until his decision so family can more easily visit him. And after this week's hearing, the circuit attorney's office believes they have made their solid case for Johnson's innocence.
But I have to look at this thing and decide, was this a botched investigation that led to this man being convicted?
Friday, Judge David Mason continued to express concern over how Lamar Johnson was identified as a suspect in Marcus Boyd's murder. This week, the star witness in the case said he couldn't identify the shooters, but was pressured into choosing Johnson.
I did not know who the shooters were. And I was told who they were, and it was wrong for that to take place.
On the last day of the hearing, Judge Mason asked the lead detective on the case how there were no other characteristics identifying Johnson as one of the suspects other than a lazy eye.
What in the world is distinctive about this man's eyes from pretty much any black man of a similar complexion?
Well, you can tell his eyes are different.
Tell me what you see.
I can tell that his right eye is different from his left.
Because you understand, this man was convicted on what you just said.
The prosecutor on the case admitted they didn't have solid evidence in the case other than witness testimony. Friday, the judge posed this question to Detective Joseph Nickerson.
You sure this isn't a situation where you guys were a little bit in a rush to make a conviction?
Not at all, Your Honor. Not one bit.
For 4 years, the Circuit Attorney's Office has fought for the right to prove Lamar Johnson's innocence.
St. Louis Circuit Attorney Kim Garner says her team believes they've proved their case.
Please pay attention to this case. It's about justice.
And the judge had hoped to make a decision before Christmas, but realistically, it won't come until sometime in January. For a deeper dive into this week's hearing, you can download the KMOV News app in your phone's app store and then click on Top Stories. Let's take